And we are recording now. Gustav, you start.
Okay, welcome everybody to this first webinar ever on our part. We are a bit low on viewers, but hopefully other people will join in later. For most of you that don't know Blab, there's a few things you want to know. You can ask questions without being in the actual one seat that's left for active participation, including video and sound. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can basically type any questions. The best way to do so is using /Q and then space typing your question, so that in the right-hand side you have 3 tabs, all mentions and questions. If you have questions and you type a /Q in front of them, it will be easier for us to see who is posing questions. The rest basically speaks for itself on that part. If you want to join, like Antonio just did, you can click on the join the last seat button, and if it's a proper moment for us to actually have you into the conversation, we will of course let you in, but that's something you need to actually be able to follow our presentation and ask questions. So even if you're shy, you can still participate. So as Natalie is showing on the right hand side of your screen, this is what the question looks like if you actually press /Q, and if you then click the questions button, you will only see the questions that are being posed. Hi, there's more people joining us, and good to see that. I think we covered about everything that you need to know to participate in this particular Blab. If you're new, feel free during this presentation to play around with it. One feature that Blab doesn't offer yet is a proper screen sharing. This is why in the upper right corner you see a very vague image of what actually is a quite good PowerPoint presentation. So rest assured, at the end of this webinar, we will actually guide you towards the handout of it, which will be very easily readable to you. So anything I left out, and I'm turning to the other side because actually we are in the same room. Let me give you a sneak peek of that. So over there's Natalie, and we're basically sitting next to each other. Feel free to ask any questions during our talk. The more questions you get in, the more applicable it will be to you. A webinar is, of course, something that's supposed to be interactive. So let's make sure to make use of that opportunity. Again, if you have any questions, just pose them. Ask for the open seat to sit in if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with us. And of course, after your question has been answered by us, we will ask you to relieve that seat so that other people can always also ask questions.
One more thing. Maybe you have noticed that I have replied to both Andreas's and Antonia's remarks in the chat bar, and that their Twitter handles are highlighted. And if you want to do that, so the person will notice that you have replied to their comment or question or whatever, just hover over the blank spot, so to say, right after their name, and then a little vague arrow will show up, and when you click that, it will work like you see in the chat bar. Then you will see the person's name in bold and colored and highlighted.
Okay, having said all that about technicalities around Blab, again, play around, You can ask questions on that too, and if any of us have time, we will answer that. And of course, other Blab enthusiasts will be able to answer any question that you have in the chat session as well. So let's get on with the topic of today, which is actually based on a question if I remember correctly, was asked by Antonia. Can you, as a leader, be friends with people from your team? And that's actually a very intriguing question because there's no simple answer. But to do it officially, let's just start with defining two key words in there. So what do we consider to be a leader? So for today, we'll focus on the manager or quote unquote boss. If you're Dutch, you know how much we hate the word boss, so we would refer to manager or someone who is basically allocating work to you. So in our normal everyday conversations and teachings and workshops, we have a different approach of leader, and hopefully you will pick up on those hints as well, because in everyday life we say you don't need that title to be a leader. But for today's topic, it's probably best to define leader as a manager position. And hopefully you, by the end of the talk, you also see how you can apply it to everyday life if you're not in the management role or position. So let's see, and also define friend, and that's probably an easier one. Of course, most of us who are of the age of over 20 know the series of Friends, where you see people basically being friends. Now, I'm actually curious to find out how one of you would define friends, and maybe I'm not sure whether Antonia still wants to get in. So let's see if she actually wants to join in, and Natalie's clicking on that.
Yay!
Hi. So, since this is your question, how would you define friends? Because your question was, can I, as a leader manager, be friends with people on my team? So, how would you define friends?
Well, friends was in that connection was actually linked to someone I would do social activities with. So, going out with or having a drink after work, but not all as a colleague, but also taking out the dog for him. So really being active and having more or less a social relationship with that.
Okay. Yeah. And as we'll see later on, there's different expectations come with a title, quote unquote, friend, than they are with a title, quote unquote, manager, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look into that. Thank you for your active participation. We're going to open your seat up. You can join in whenever you want. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. But please bear with us. So it's a good question, because if you look at it, you will see all kinds of mentions in the media. For example, Fortune run an article in which they say, well, basically relationships that are personal and social, as Antonia just said, will only produce disappointment in the long run. So if you wait long enough, you will be disappointed. Actually, there's a book. I think you found that. Can you tell a bit about that?
Well, the most important thing that I found in the book is actually pointed out in the article. Whereas they state that they think, the authors, that it is really impossible to be friends in the end when there is a leader employee relationship. And that got me thinking, and the question Antonia asked us as well, and that's the reason why we planned on doing this webinar. So I'm curious. Of course, we have some experiences in this field, but what about you? is there someone who would like to share his or her experiences with being friends with the boss or being the boss or something like that?
Let's see if we can get any interaction going here. Don't be shy. You can also type your remarks in the chat
Yes,
box.
you don't have to be in the video seat. You can type your remarks in the chat bar as well. Antonia, would you like to come back in the video seat? Is that what you're telling us?
Okay.
Me again? Okay.
If you want to.
Just click on the join button. Yay, there you are.
Yeah, I had the Dutch keyboard on, so that makes,
okay.
makes Dutch again makes sound. Good to know.
Okay. What are your
yes,
experiences?
I did pause the question because I did work in different cultures and countries, as you know, and I clearly experienced in one country, my example is here, Turkey, this is not possible because it was clear relation, and as soon as I got into doing some social stuff with it, they related other things to it, so automatically it meant I couldn't say no to them in the workplace. So afterwards, living in Norway and also my experience from Holland is more closer, so it was possible to do something in the free time, but also still be in a different relation, because work set was a different way than private. But as I learned also, you're always the same person. So no matter what you do and no matter where you are, you have the same values. So you reflect in those situations. When the question now got up was that I started this new position here and in Austria, and I knew the persons I'm leading now before I came here. So for me, in the first moment, I was happy to become their leader or to work together with them, and then it sank in that we were friends, and now we are leader and employee, or boss and employee, or whatever you call it. So I was really curious when I asked that question, how I'm supposed to handle that. Now today, by coincidence, I had one of my first staff talks with one of these friends and employees, and she actually described it that way. She said she really enjoys having having a friendship, employee, staff, boss situation in one, and it works for her. I must say she's my age, so with her it works really well. She gave me the feedback that she thinks that we are on the same level. We talk to each other in the same language, but she notices directly, or she knows that I have to take decisions on my own, or that I have to take some decisions where she maybe feel that she's okay. She knows that this is yes or no is my decision in the end, because I have to live with it.
Okay. And you told us about your experiences in Turkey.
Yeah.
And why do you think it wouldn't be possible to be friends and a leader at the same time?
There, I would probably make a difference maybe in the level where you work. So the level I worked with was on the shop floor. So I was the sales leader, and the staff was directly at the customer and had customer interaction. And there I experienced that it was a clear, I don't want to say a no-go, but people linked more to this friendship or the social relations if you did it. So I just experienced that they would ask me for favors, and they would expect me to say yes just because they brought a coffee the other day, or they took me in a car to go somewhere. So on that, it was really interesting to see that the typical culture was if I was talking only about the pure Turkish people.
Maybe that fits into the slide I'm showing. Let me see over there. Because it's mirrored, so I have to remember pointing left means upright. So this is one of the pitfalls that you have, that if people start liking one another, it could lead to less respect and less trust and less distance, as you explained, and also having different trading mechanisms. Like you said, somebody does something on a friendly level for you, and they want to exchange that for a sort of business favor. And that's indeed quite tricky. So let's see how this works. See you later.
Why don't you let her be in the seat?
Well, maybe well, because Andreas also mentioned, and I never thought about that we work together, and we also, at least I, and I think you as well, considered us to be friends.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that, and this is also one of the reasons why I was very intrigued by the question, because to me it's quite normal to become friends and have friendly relationships with people I work with. Actually, people who don't know me yet, then you don't know that Antonia used to be a student of mine, and I used to be friends with her even back in the time when she was still a student of mine, simply because to me it's quite normal. I do realize, and as you will see later, I do realize there is this a lot of pitfalls involved being friends, especially in the student-lecturer interaction. Now, let's see. I think Guido is also wanting to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, Guido.
Hey.
Also
Hi.
being a lecturer.
Yeah.
So maybe you wanted to mention something about that, or what did you want to mention?
No, I didn't want to mention anything about lecturing.
Good. So what did you want to mention?
I wanted to state that you can only be friends with your leader when it's a servant leader.
Good. Yeah. So why do you? I would tend to agree, but why do you think that's the case?
Because then the individual talents of the people, of the friends, are more respected and actually involved than talking about boss relationship, thought from economic values, trying to make hours, and just being focused on results, stuff like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and especially in this area where you work with people from a lecture setting. My experience is once they actually do realize that you really care about them and really go out of your way to serve their development. And my guess with you is quite the same. People always tend to like you very much. I've spoke to a few students, and they do realize that it's a good relationship they build, but they still have enough of a distance so as to still be able to be a student, so to say.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that very much is based on that same observation that you just made, that it sort of is servant leadership that's at the core of having any chance of having a good friend and boss, leader, manager, employee, or student relationship.
I mean, friends are within a group. They're all servant leaders to the rest.
Yeah.
Maybe you could elaborate a bit about servant leadership, because from the chat I understand that not everybody understands what that means.
Oh my God! Could we Google that?
So
yes, we could.
we could, or we could try to do a brief synopsis. If you want me to, I can actually give a very brief synopsis, so we can continue with the talk on leadership and being a friend. So the very brief synopsis of servant leadership is where you, and basically the easiest is probably to pick somebody like Nelson Mandela, who put a lot of his life literally into serving the people and still leading them. Lots of examples can be derived from his life. So servant leader is very much the leader who is not very much in the picture, doesn't really want, is not very much ego driven, but just wants to basically better the world, or more or less ambitiously better the situation for the people they work with. And no matter whether they have the actual job title, they actually do that. So you can also be a servant leader when you are quote unquote just part of the team. This is the ones we really like in our
Yeah.
teams. Just to give you a very brief synopsis, please do Google it. And in the handout, we'll also have some references to reading materials on that.
So they are not really acting like a boss who is higher in hierarchy, and you should do whatever this person says. But this person tries to be servant, tries to be helpful, and to help other people succeed, and be a bit humble.
And
Yeah.
indeed, actually, it goes the other way around also. If you look at the slide, it's really hard, so bear with us to see it. If you look over there, you actually see that if you look at the upside of being close to other people in a situation where they actually trust you and you feel you can trust them, that's the best way to have a base for influencing one another. And this is also one of the key ingredients in servant leadership. You're also open to not just being the one in leading. Every now and then you will be the one being led by people who are basically reporting to you. So what are the dangers of becoming friends with your boss, or becoming friends, if you are the boss, with the people you work with? Well, Antonia already mentioned one, and there's a few more we want to go over. So it's quite hard for some, especially starting leaders, to make tough decisions on people they work with.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have me as your manager, or when you have me as your lecturer, I'm very clear from the very start on that I will fire you if needs be. No matter how much I like you, I will fire you if needs be. So most of you know I do a lot of co-working with my wife. I would fire her, and she knows that, and I'm expecting her to fire me. Actually, she has made, because we did quite some work together, she has made very direct, open, honest remarks when I basically did not meet the mark. And that's something that not everybody can do, but if you can, it's something that allows you to become a better boss friend if you want to. So if you like someone, it's also harder to evaluate them and not taking into account the emotional relationship we have with this person. So that's another thing you want to consider. So being critical and helpful in your feedback, well, if you have really close friends, it doesn't really matter what they say. But if you haven't arrived at that level with your boss friend, so to say, or with your boss or with your friend employee, the going back and forth with honest critical feedback could be tricky. So this is basically one of the things that Antonia also mentioned, is if you want, people actually start expecting you to make exceptions on the business level based on the social interactions that you had. So I thought long and hard, actually I slept on it for a few nights to find out, okay, how come, for example, fortune says it will go wrong? Now, this is what I came up with, and let me walk you through with it. Of course, being a former consultant, I always like matrices. So if you look at it on the vertical axis, you have a very professional relationship, no friendship whatsoever on the bottom. And you have on the upper part, you have the personal relationship where you are very much friends. This implies that if you look at these two dimensions, if you have a boss-friend relationship, you are going to be on both. Now, the tricky part is going to be not when things go well. If things go well on the job with your employee, there's nothing really hard about being boss friends, because basically what you do, you celebrate all the wonderful achievements and results, and you praise them from a professional point of view, hopefully making sure that they repeat that. Now, the hard part is going to be, like I just said, when you are in a situation where you should point out poor performance, where you have to basically, from a boss level, or a boss point of view, you should basically make sure that they get out of that situation, regardless of what that should take. Now, as a friend, you, of course, if you think about your best friends, it goes without saying, if they have bad performance or trouble, whatever you call it, your basic job is going to be support this person. So this is where it gets tricky for most bosses. You are in this dilemma. Do I support them? Do I basically fire them? Or can I do both? So even if you do the best manager job possible there, where you both point out the bad situation, simply put, and you support them, it could very well be that your employee friend does not like that at all. So this is probably one of the reasons why disappointment is around the corner right then. So what we didn't take into account, if you look into this matrix, as I just very casually mentioned, if things go right, so you're celebrating all the achievements and you praise the employee, and the employee gets all that praise and celebrates with you, there's also third parties involved. One of the key questions related to can you be a friend if you are the boss, or can you befriend the boss, is how do other people react on that. So in a situation that we have been in, people would assume, of course, since we have a very clear relationship, people would assume that we would always see things the same way, not so much the right way, but the same way. And they also would basically assume that we would basically go out of our way to basically defend the other person. So even if you do everything right as a manager, this is one of the things that you run into, that people that you didn't befriend will basically see your relationship as unjust, favoring the person you befriended. And this is something that you have to find a mode of working with. And that's basically why it's so hard. So after warning that this is something that could end in disappointment, also pointing out the disappointments that are going to be there, no matter your good intentions and your wonderful managerial skills, let's look at the bright side, because there are quite some bright sides. So you want to talk a bit about on that, right?
Well, I'm curious because Robert asked us a question in the chat bar. He asks us what creates a happy relationship. And
you want me to show you this one?
Yes, I would like you to. Thank you. Because Robert, what I'm curious about is, have you ever heard of this model, the PERMA model, by Dr. Seligman, Martin Seligman, the founder of the positive psychology movement? No, you haven't. Okay. Well, I think it's very interesting because this simple abbreviation or word, or however you would like to call it, reminds us of actually what are the building blocks of a happy relationship, both private and in the working environment. You need all 5 building blocks, pieces that are in your screen right now, and that I hope you can read. And
I'm typing them as you go.
You are typing them in the chat bar. Okay, and I will read them out loud. The first one is positive emotions. Maybe you do know, or you don't know what the value is of positive emotions. You could say that this is what's giving you life energy, so to say. You need a whole lot of more positive emotions than negative emotions in your life to be a happy person and to be an energetic, healthy person. Of course, negative emotions also have value, and it is not possible to live a life that is only full of positive emotions. Actually, you need the variations in positives and negatives. But what's very important is that the positive emotions weigh out the negative ones. Actually, you need at least 3 times more positive than negative ones to have a positive outcome.
So if you translate it onto your question, Robert, is a good relationship is one in which you have quite some more positive experiences with one another than negative ones. So if you have one-on-one, one positive, one negative, you will automatically perceive this as a negative relationship in the long run. Mm-hmm. And you probably have been in a situation where you had a wonderful relationship and one specific negative could kill the whole relationship.
Yes, and that is because of the very early ages when we were all living in, how to say?
Bearskin.
Sorry? Bearskin, yes. And running around with wooden sticks to get rid of the evil animals and stuff like that. And from that age, we still have the focus on negative experiences, and we are focused on threats and things that could lead to us disappearing from this earth.
Dying, basically.
Dying, yes. And of course, most of us don't want that. So we tend to be focused more on threats and on danger and negative experiences than on positive ones and possibilities.
So let's see what Robert has to say about this. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Robert. Where are you from?
I'm actually from San Diego area. I'm visiting Bad Axe, Michigan right now. I know, don't laugh at the word, but it's true. That's where I was born and raised. Going to visit my dad this afternoon. He's in a nursing home. So, yes, happy relationships. I was curious. I had to ask that question. I didn't know you had a format or something that you were following someone else's lead on this, but my version is different than that version. But I love the I love this topic. It's an awesome topic.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
So are you a manager yourself, a leader, or an employee,
I would say all of the above. And yes, yes, I do have my own company, and I do have a blab as well as called Happiness. So, you know, where you guys were coming from and acknowledging this is so it's actually information and how you're bringing in the different emotions to tie in how you would talk to someone in a particular relationship in a job atmosphere, is like you were mentioning around your wife and bringing them, you know, that relationship. I think I have a tendency to believe that you have to come into a relationship and bringing that positive energy into that relationship first. Right.
Also, because if you look at the other, and again, that's just one model, but it's very useful in real day life, because on the work floor, Gallup you probably know them, the organization that runs many market research things. They did a very elaborate study on what makes people like their job, and feeling engaged in job is very important. But one of the key things that was crucial to that they had at least had one best friend on the job, not necessarily the manager, but at least one best friend. So it's that important, and this is also common sense. You spend more time on the job, obviously, than you spend with your loved one on an average weekday, unless you have a very short schedule, of course. But on average, you spend about 8, maybe 10 hours a day on your job. So you probably want to befriend people there, not necessarily the one that you're reporting to, but hey, it's that important for people to have the positive vibe, as you say, and the positive emotions that come from having friends in the job.
Yeah.
From an energetic level, then that you meaning I myself have to bring that to the table. We have to bring that that love, that happiness, that willingness to accept those connections wherever they stand in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. How you present yourself. And there's actually a very nice exercise I do with all kinds of people, where I basically have them say hi to one another, saying hi from the head with the intention, like, okay, I'm going to talk to you on a very rational level, feels different to most people than saying hi from the heart.
There you go. I love that.
It's that simple energy that you mentioned. Your intention itself depends. Basically, it's going to determine how you are going to interact, and therefore also is going to determine your relationship, and is going to determine whether or not you're going to have great energy going and basically have business. Because in the end, that's also based on, as you call it, energy. Yeah,
it is energy, and I right from the core of everything that we do is energy. Whether it's business, whether it's a relationship, whether it's our family, it's a level of love that we have for ourselves that aligns with that other person's energy that we would receive back, or we have to be open for receiving. But we're giving love, and we're giving that happiness first.
Yeah, very much so. One of the things, and in education, they thought I was quite weird when I said, okay, what we need to do as lecturers is we should not, quote unquote, fall in love with our students. We should basically love them. If you love, for example, your own kids, you know that sometimes you have to be the tough one and do something that's not too nice in the short run for the result in the long run. Whereas if you are falling in love with someone, you tend to do the exact opposite. You do everything to make the other person happy, which is very much focused on being liked and getting that smile. Whereas when you are in a loving relationship, you basically also take care of the long run, where you basically also point out the flaws and the room for improvement, right?
Well, I don't know if you would go. If you can notice the flaws in someone else, isn't the flaws already resonating inside of you?
Oftentimes, yes. So
okay. So the distinction is when you resonate with understanding that everything that is showing up in your life is resonating with you inside of you first before it shows up on the outside.
Yeah.
Right. And what you send out, you get back in return oftentimes.
Yeah, so if you like, I love when you said, come out of.
We're losing you, Robert. Maybe you can refresh your connection.
There you go.
There you are again.
So, you're back with us.
Okay.
We hear you now.
I lost him.
We said a lot of things, but we didn't hear the last 1 minute.
Oh, honey. Okay. Thanks, you guys. Well, I was saying where I resonated with what you were saying that the vibration inside of you, if you notice it from inside, you notice it in somebody else, it resonates with inside of you
Very
first.
much.
Right.
And sometimes setting the intent that would clear that inside of you automatically clears it in the other person.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Let's see and go back on topic. Let's see what the other upsides are of being. Yeah.
I love what you're saying. I just wanted to resonate with.
Thank you very much.
That's true.
Okay, I already posted, so to say, the short version of what I wanted to say about the PERMA model. Maybe you can show us the slide again, Gustav.
Oh, there we go.
Just to keep it short and to talk about the value of being friends at work, to have more time to talk about that. I put it in the chat box already. What Martin Seligman teaches us is that in order to flourish and to be happy, we need the right balance of positive emotions. I already told you about that. Preferably at least 3 times more positive emotions than negative ones. The opportunity to be regularly engaged by using our strengths at work. And some of you might have attended our previous webinar when we talked about the strengths creators and the strengths we have and the difference between those two. Oh, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Robert. Between those two, strengths and strengths creators. Because what we think is very important to point out is that strengths are things that, what you are good at doing. And strength creators are things that make you feel strong, that make you feel energized. And that can be things that you are not good at yet, but you are willing to learn. And you can be good at things that de-energize you. So it's very important to keep a close mind at that, a close look at that. The difference between your strengths and your strengths creators. So what we think that Martin Seligman means by when he says the opportunity to be regularly engaged by using our strengths at work, we would like to stress that we think that should be your strengths creators, the things that energize you. And then the next point is the presence of good relationships. Well, we have been discussing that for quite some time already. Also, good relationships between your boss or your subordinate, is that the right word to say? Your fellow colleagues. And the feeling that your work has meaning, that there is a higher purpose of what you are doing instead of only ticking the boxes of the tasks that you should do. And the last one is the ability to accomplish goals that matter to us. So it's also helpful to be successful, to feel that you have succeeded and you have reached some goals that are meaningful to you and that relate to your strengths creators.
And this very much basically feeds into the remark Guido made earlier on how servant leadership, which almost by definition is positive leadership, is at the core of using friendship in a very positive way to increase performance. And there's many upsides to being friends on the job. There is, as you can hopefully see here and read, it's 7 times more likely that by becoming friends with whomever on your team, there's much more engagement. As I just mentioned before, Gallo did quite some research on that.
And engagement relates to productivity. So I think every leader, a personal leader and a manager, will like this fact, so to say.
Yeah, because it lowers your stress levels having a friend on the job, if only because you can complain, quote unquote, to somebody you trust, and it also increases your focus and therefore your productivity. So if you look at different parts of components that are there that increase your performance through friendship on the job, is one, you have a base of support in good times and bad times. You have these positive emotions coming from this friendship relationship that you have, being in the good times, celebrating with you, but also support in the negative situations where you did not meet the mark and everything else that could be considered negatively normally in a job setting. So as we just saw very quickly, it will help you flourish, feel good, do good, and feel highly engaged. So that ends up in adding more value. Now, as you can see, this is a continuing circle that self-reinforces itself. So if you, for example, if you take into consideration leadership that focuses on weaknesses, performance declines drastically with over 1/3. If you look at the positive leadership that we just covered, that will by itself have a positive influence of 27%. So if you combine the two, the negative focused leadership without friendship on the job, focusing on the weaknesses is going to get you more than 50% less of the productivity compared to being a positive leader. So I already pointed out what it makes it difficult, but one of the things I would like to show you in a nice roundup of, if you look at the classical ideas about boss and friends, and this is one of the things that also Antonia just mentioned, all of a sudden, if you are a friend, most people see you as an equal, even although on the job you are technically their superior. So relationships are different. You get into a job, and before you know it, you work with people you wouldn't never go out and have a beer with. So hopefully you choose whomever you'll be friends and have good relationships with. So classical boss expectations is that they are going to judge you and like you or dislike you based you on your performance and your productivity. Whereas, of course, friends hopefully accept you as you are. And I remember a nice card I saw when I was a kid, that it said, friendship is where somebody accepts you as you are and gently invites you to grow. So if you, and I'm not going to read all of them, if you combine the left-hand side to the right-hand side, you will see there's quite a difference in expectations. And as we pointed out earlier, you are bound to run into trouble because it's more difficult. At some point, as a manager, as I pointed out before, you will have to do something that is probably not expected from the friend perspective. My personal solution for that is to be very clear up front. I remember when Natalie and I, for the first time, started working together, we both basically said, if you are doing something that's professionally not correct, I will very professionally address that with you. And that's something that's easier when you do that before the actual quote-unquote problems arise. And as I just disclosed, we had that situation where we basically said to one another, this is not right, you need to step up your game professionally. And of course, on a friendship, in this case love-based, we would also help the other person. Very much so, Brad. It's a good point. And actually, this is one thing, and you weren't there when Antonia mentioned that. And Antonia, who basically was the cause for this blab on how could you be friends? Can you be friends with your employees or your boss? It's quite different. Antonia just mentioned if you are in the Netherlands where the overall culture is not so hierarchical. It's quite different from the culture in Germany where they are quite used to saying Herr Doctor to the boss for the rest of their professional lives. So yeah, that's just fine, but it's a good point. It's so that also adds to the complexity of the issue at hand. It's going to be quite different. Probably it's easier to befriend people on the job in the Netherlands than say Asia, where there's way more hierarchy, and it probably is not even accepted in certain circles when you do that. So this is the downside that, and actually I had experienced that myself being on the employee and the manager end, and in both cases I have experienced it. That if you do something that is more professional to a friend based on bad results or something like that, that is going to feel like betrayal because hey, you're supposed to have my back. So it's very simple but very hard to combine being a good boss and being a good friend. So if you ask me, I think the biggest challenge will be to fire someone and still be friends afterwards. That's not very likely that you can pull that off, but it's a good test of your leadership and friend skills. So, putting this all together, you will see that there's many challenges that come with this. But as we already just very quickly covered, it's also worth quite a lot, and it's a decision you have to make yourself. So, oh, the other way around. So people want to work for and with people they like, as we just seen. There's this wonderful book, and I once read it in university. I remember reading it on a train. People looking at me, you must be a poor guy having no friends, because it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. But once you grow that habit of being sincerely interested, and this is also one of the things that Guido earlier on mentioned, that you, as a servant leader, you start off with being interested in the other party, that's going to help you a lot. Now, what goes with that is having a sincere interest and therefore listening with intent to listen, not so much the intent of basically having the better answer. Being a good listener is going to help in encouraging the other person to talk about themselves. Of course, it will also give you some challenges when they tell you things that you would not expect to hear on the job. But once you get into a more friendship-like relationship or a full friendship relationship, don't be surprised that people will basically spill their guts with you, even although you could be their manager still. So it's up to you how to deal with that. And I personally see it as a positive. Now, this is also a challenging part because once you become friend, people will be wanting you to be very personable and tell your stories. And of course, we don't live the Facebook life. There's quite a lot of things going on in all our lives that are hard. We would not like everybody to know, but people who are on a friendship level, we are okay with that they know some of it, right? So this is what people will expect from one another once they feel that you have reached that level of friendship. Now, this also is yet another point, and admitting your faults and admitting them quickly is also one of the key ingredients in servant leadership, where you basically are a normal person amongst other normal persons, and basically admitting your own faults is going to allow other people, because you created more safe environment for quote unquote confessions of mistakes, to also admit their faults and therefore be more human. So basically you're humanizing the whole workplace through that. So if you follow those 6 rules, quote unquote, it's going to help you create a more positive influence on other people, and it might actually grow you a few friends on the job, and we already see the challenges that go with that. So maybe you want to talk about our, and I'm looking at you, Natalie, you want to talk a bit about this abbreviation about giving free often.
Yes, and it's very funny because I see an orange color in the video screen, but actually the slide is red, but okay. No problem. Yes, it's, I think, easy to remind this abbreviation, free. Yes, it has only one E, but I think it's still good to pronounce it as free. And what does it mean, give free often? Frequent recognition and encouragement. That is what creates positive relationships and what gets people engaged and helps them to have meaningful accomplishments and to flourish. So the first thing actually, let me do the switching, please. Okay.
I'm trying to be a servant leader here.
Thank you very much. Okay. Recognize accomplishments. And it's very important to recognize both big and small, even very tiny small accomplishments. So don't wait to give someone a compliment until some very big step has been taken by this person. Some very huge accomplishment is there. It's a good idea to give compliments to at least 3 people every day. When you make that a habit, it will grow into a natural behavior. And like we have been discussing before, your intention is what you get back. So when you give someone else a compliment, you will be a happier person yourself. So not only the other person receiving the compliment, but you as well will flourish when you give compliments to other people. And it helps you focus on the positive experience you have during a day. And that also helps you to flourish and to be happy and to build positive relationships and to be a good leader, a servant leader. Okay, so recognize accomplishments, big and very important, small ones as well. And of course, recognize project milestones as well and celebrate when people, what's happening?
Let me do that.
Wow. I don't know what happened. We were discussing this slide. Recognize project milestones as well and celebrate when people achieve milestones. And very important as well, be an enthusiastic supporter of the people in your team. And that means help them do whatever they're doing. Help them cope with disappointments, with things that happen in their private lives maybe. and help them to focus on learning experiences. So when something doesn't work out quite as good as they, and maybe you as well, had hoped, be an enthusiastic supporter, point out and help people to see and recognize what has been working, and work from there. See it as a learning experience. So don't stress what didn't go well or what should have been happening or stuff like that. And don't talk about things that people should improve, but help them focus on, okay, what did go well? How could we do it even better next time? Some time ago about focusing on the strengths creators people have, and the things that work out well, then the total performance will be so much better than when you focus on things that should be improved. And that is because when you focus on things that should be improved, people will narrow down. They will stop trying things and will work from fear, and that never has great results.
I just realized, looking at this slide once more, there's this wonderful quote I used quite recently in a talk with someone from Nelson Mandela, who basically summarizes all of this, saying, if you catch one of your people doing something right, compliment them. Big or small, compliment them. If you catch them doing something quote unquote wrong, help them. And basically that's what giving free often is about. Accomplishments, compliments. Trouble, help. And it's really, really hard to be a leader like that. And this is again why this remark that Guido posed earlier on, it probably requires you to be a very much servant leader that actually does that, because it's going to take a lot of your time if you want to live up to that very basic rule or the rules that are basically set in here. And it's clear to me that you can't really read it, and I already typed it. The title of the book is Profit from the Positive, another very warmly suggested book to read if you like this. Now, looking at time, I want to see if there are any questions that we can answer before we wrap it up. So feel free to ask them in the right-hand side question bar using /Q, or just typing there. Or if you want to, and feel free to join the open sea to ask final questions before we wrap it up for today.
And maybe before that, it would be a good idea to suggest to do an exercise about giving free often.
Oh, right.
What you could do is write down for yourself, how often do you actually do this? Point 1, 2, 3, and 4. How often do you recognize accomplishments, project milestones? How often are you an enthusiastic supporter of your team? And how regularly do you encourage people and praise people? And after you have been doing that, when you are a courageous person, and we hope you are, and we support you enthusiastically in doing that.
Well done, by the way.
Thank you so much. You could ask your co-workers, the people you lead as an official leader or a personal leader or a team leader, or maybe even your next door neighbors, or, well, people you would like to ask these questions to. How do they experience you in doing things like you see on the slide? So what do you think? What is your idea of your behavior, and how is it perceived by the people you think are important to you? And of course, you really need courage to do that, but believe me, it will help grow friends. Yeah, it will help you become even better friends, and to have meaningful and positive relationships and to flourish. Okay, so now, do you have any questions for us, or would you like to share your ideas, suggestions, experiences, dilemmas? What do you say, Brett? Find honest mentors and don't fear the outcome. That's it. Yeah. Would you like to tell us your ideas about this? Brett, would you like to take a seat, a video seat? Or maybe Antonia again?
Anybody who wants.
Anybody else?
Or we're going to wrap it up for today.
Oh, thank you so much, Antonia.
That's so nice.
Okay.
So, without any other questions, let's challenge you. What we're going to do, since this is just one of our test runs on reaching more people throughout the world with challenging issues like this one. This is what we liked very much on the question, that it actually is very much a challenging question. Can it be done? And the answer is yes, but there's no risk-free way of doing it. Chances are you will be disappointed every now and then. But personally, I believe that the disappointments in the end are nothing compared to the great relationship that you will have with the people you befriend on the job, and people who have worked with me one way or the other. Actually, there's 3 of them in this talk. They probably can confirm that I actually always go for the relationship, friendship relationship with whomever I feel that's with. So what we want to do, we are going to create this 30-day leadership challenge, which is based on one of the courses that we run throughout Europe. For example, or for the PhD students at the TU Delft in the Netherlands, but also in Croatia. And it's a challenge where you, for 30 days, challenge yourself on the aspects of leadership. So it helps you grow, and it's very hard to read, vision. It helps you become even more authentic, because that probably helps you a lot in the leadership position as well. It tests and probably also grows your courage, and it's going to also give you some insight on how good you are and what you could improve with respect to integrity, because these are just 4 of the most often mentioned words people give as the answers to the question, what do you consider typical character traits of people who are good leaders? And not coincidentally, most often people like the servant leaders. So this 30-day challenge will be online, and Natalie just shared with us the short URL. So if you use that one that she typed down there, that's going to help you a lot. And good news, since we're Dutch, we like it ourselves very much. It's going to be free once more. So please feel free to join in and ask anybody who has the want or need to improve their leadership. Having a management job or not, it's fine. Anybody can join. Feel free to ask anybody else to join in, because one of the reasons we do this is, speaking for myself, is I really like helping out people, especially in the leadership development. So feel free to join in, have other people join in, the more the merrier. I think this is a good moment to just, you already mentioned this one, so I'm looking forward to talking to you a bit more. We'll be doing a lot of more of these webinars on different topics, as well as not just leadership, but also on change management skills. If you have any questions for us, maybe topics for blabs or questions on topic, dilemmas you found based on the talk that we shared with you today, feel free to contact us. You will find us, of course, on Twitter, but also on LinkedIn and on Facebook. We also post quite some YouTube clips of days that we basically had with clients. So you will find us there. And if you want, you can also make sure you get all the news that we share. And there's going to be lots of other interesting offers, hopefully. And most of them are Dutch priced for free in our newsletter. So feel free to contact us or stay in touch with us more passively by reading our newsletter. I really enjoyed the talk. I really enjoyed the contributions from all over the world, being the Dutch, the German, or the Canadian, or the American. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Natalie, for co-hosting this and arranging most of this for us. Hopefully, until next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Oh, thanks for the suggestion, Brett.
Right. Yes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.